Hello everyone, Eunice here. Welcome to this tutorial where we'll draw a cute summer girl because summer is almost over and we haven't done it yet. So let's go and fix it. We will start our preparational part by deciding what kind of canvas we're going to be using. Today we're using a standard square canvas with pixel width and pixel height set at 2048 pixels, DPI 300, color profile set as sRGB with this low number. When it's all done, hitting done, go into our new canvas, and then to continue with our preparational part, we will need to go under the description. Well, you will need to go under the description because I have all the materials. Download the materials mentioned for this tutorial, and when you are all done with it, let's firstly go and select the brush. We will go to the brush library and we will select this brush that you downloaded. So it is our dull flat pencil. If you don't like this brush, use any brush that you prefer. We are starting with the sketchy part, so select something a little bit with texture. So when we have selected our brush, let's go to our layers. We will go to the background color. We will go to this color palette that you downloaded, go on the palettes, go on the cards on the top, and we are looking for this background color. Let's select it. And then let's go to our actual color palettes to select the color for our sketchy part. So I have the color with the title sketch. You can select it. You can pick any color that you prefer. That probably won't be seen on the camera, so I will go and select something a little bit darkish. So when it's all done, let's go and do one more thing that is kind of optional. If you want to go manually eyeballing all the things that we're going to be creating for our scheme, you are welcome to do it. But if you want to have some kind of a crutches right here, let's go to the range icon over the top left. We'll go under canvas and we will toggle drawing guide. And to start from the same point, we will go to edit drawing guide and we will set the grid size to 150 pixels. When we are done with this, let's hit done. And now we are all set to create our little scheme. So let's start creating our scheme by creating some kind of a cell for our little girl. We will go and create the shape that will go in a rectangular way. So with one line we are creating it, we are holding it at the end, and we will go to this option rectangle or any other option that you have on the top. You probably will have rectangle here. We will go and adjust the placement of this element and maybe some of the notes right here. So we will go and match it with the cells that we have as our guiding lines. And what we need to create for position is one cell on the top and two cells on all the other sides. When we have it in that way, let's tap on the screen, and then we will go toward our layers, tap on the N icon and adjust the opacity here so it's not that bright and disturbing. When it's all done, hitting on our layer and creating one more layer on the top. Now we will go and create a couple of more shapes to create our illustration later on. So let's firstly go and create a shape of the circle. So go into our inside parts right here, creating a shape, holding it at the end and holding one of our fingers on the screen to make it an actual circle. So let's go a little bit bigger with the size. We will hold everything that we are holding right now and we will move our Apple Pencil from the side to side, mostly toward the outside. When we have it, we also will go to our arrow key on the top left. We'll use uniform method and we will reposition our shape a little bit. So what we are doing is moving the shape the way that it looks kind of like that. So we will need to have 3 cells on the bottom, kind of 2 cells on the top, 2 cells on both sides, but not 2 in the center. So something going in that way. When we have the result like that, let's tap onto our arrow key to go away from this mode and let's go toward the bottom and we will create the future body. So for it, we will go and start creating a little line going right here, going like that, creating it. You can go a little bit with not a straight line, but a bit of the angular line. When we have it, we will go and create another line like that. And then on the opposite side, we will go and create another line that will be a little bit less angular. So now we have the shape for our future body. And then we will go and create another line that will help us to create our illustration. Let's do it on the separate layer. So going again to our layers, tapping on the plus icon, and we will need to create a curve that will go through all these 2 shapes that we have, and it will go through the center of them. So we will go and do it in that way. So again, with one line, create a shape, hold it at the end, and let's go to our editing tool on the top to adjust the curvature if we need to. We will need to go like that. We will need to pay attention to this middle part right here onto the elements of the ellipse, and also on our bottom parts too. So we will need to create something going in that way. When we have the result like that, let's tap on the screen and let's go and do one more thing. We will go and define some parts of our face right here, and we will create some straight lines firstly. So one more time, let's go to our layers and create one more layer on top. We will go toward the middle part of our shape right here of the face, the future face, and we will create a straight line like that. Again, you can hold one of your fingers on the screen to create a straight line, and then we will go straight away to our arrow key on the top left, and we will tap onto this green node that we have on the top, and we will type 17, minus 17. Yeah, minus 17. And let's position this first shape in the center of this whole thing that we have right here. So something going in that way. And then we will go again straight away to our layers, and we will swipe the layer with this straight line from right to left and choose the option duplicate. Now going again to our arrow key, and we will move this shape slightly down, so we will have some kind of the position like that. So when we have it, we will go again to our layers, swiping the layer from right to left, choosing the option duplicate, and then going again to our arrow key and putting this little thing to the middle part. So we have equal parts on the bottom part of our face. When we have it, let's take a look at everything, and we have everything that we need for our future illustration. So let's go to our layers, and we will merge the layers that we have for this scheme together. So we will put one of our fingers on the layer on the top, another on the layer on the bottom. We are not touching this little like cell right here. We are selecting these layers and we are merging them together by making a pinch movement. Now going to the N icon and adjusting the opacity of everything that we have right here. And let's create a new layer on the top. And now let's move on to create the actual sketch. So firstly, let's go back to our brush, and we will start by creating the shape for our face. We are going toward the left side, and we are starting to create a little dip where we have like the bottom parts, the middle part of our face, and then going toward the bottom and starting to create this chin area. So going like that and repeating the overall shape that we have right here for our face. So if you need to create a couple of lines, a couple of attempts right here, you're welcome to use your brush, use your eraser. If you see that maybe the lines that you have for your guides are a little bit too bright, you are welcome to get back to your layers and adjust the opacity of them. You just need to barely see them so you can follow them, but they shouldn't distract you. So when you are done, get back to the layer that we are using for our sketch, and let's continue by going and creating the lines right here. So we are going toward the opposite side, and then when we reach the opposite side, let's go from this line that we have in the middle, and we will go down and create a little E right here. So a little shape like half of the circle or half of the ellipse. Now when we have it, let's straight away go and work a little bit onto our facial features. So we are going to the bottom line, and we are starting to create a little mouth right here. So going like that, a little bit thicker with our line onto the parts on the sides. And when we have it, we will go towards the next line that is our middle line right here. We are going from this mouth element, we are going slightly towards the sides from it on both sides, and we are making marks down like that. Probably that's it for the face. I'm joking. We will go and create another mark down right here onto the opposite side to create the line that will go through like the shape right here. And when we have it, let's go and create the shape of the eyes. So we are starting a little bit underneath this line to create the tips of our eyes, and then with a bit of a flatter shape going toward the opposite side and creating the shape like that. So let's create the thicker element right here in the outside part, and we are creating some kind of the wink right here or the eyelash right like that. Decide on the thickness of these elements, mostly go toward the top part and create the thicker element like that. Work onto the overall shape, make it nice, make it smooth. When we have it, we also can go toward the middle part right here and maybe create another little lash right here. Don't worry, for now we are mapping out everything, so if we need to fix something, we will go later on and we will do it like later on. When we have the result like that, let's go to the opposite side and let's create something similar here too. So we are starting again with our shape of a pretty flat curve right here, and then going higher and starting to create the shape like that. So something similar to what we have on the opposite side, creating a little wing right here, adding a bit of thickness and a bit of a shape right here onto the top. So starting to create something good in that way. Again, try to create a bit of the curve right here. You always can take a look at your illustration from the distance to see whether you're doing everything right or whether you need to go to some places and adjust something. Straight away, if you see that you can go with your eraser and adjust some parts, maybe the curvature of the lines, maybe the size of the lines and the overall shape that you are creating right now, go and do what you need to do with your brush and with your eraser to achieve a nice result right here. So for example, for now, let's go with something going in that way, and let's also go over the top and create another little lash right here closer to the end of everything that we have. Now, when we have the result like that, let's go to the top, to this line that we have on the top, and we will create little eyebrows right here. So let's go with simple shapes like that, and when we have it, let's go toward the bottom and let's create a bit of a body right here. So firstly, go into this line that we have in the center. We will create a little line like that that will define the neck, and then we will go towards the sides and we will create a shape for the hand, but we will do it on a separate layer because we will need to have a bit of a construction part right here. So let's go toward our list. Let's create one more layer on top by tapping on the plus icon, and then we will go and create the shape that we can use to create our hand. So let's go and create firstly the shape like that. It's kind of rectangular shape. Then from this rectangular shape, we will go higher with a bit of a triangular shape. We will connect it nicely with the previous one. And then when we have it, we will go and create the fingers going in that way. So going like that, you can create as many fingers as you want. I want to create a kawaii illustration, a cute illustration. So I will use 3 fingers right here. When we have the shape like that, let's go toward our lace and create one more layer on top and reduce the opacity of this layer with the scheme that we will use for our hand. Now getting back to our new layer, and let's go and turn this very peculiar little thing into the hand. So firstly, going toward this shape and starting to create a rounded shape instead of this very straight one. Going closer to the fingers, the future fingers, and going toward the opposite side to start creating this shape right here. So we are going like that, and we are continuing by going higher with the shape. So we are creating a bit of the angle right here. And then let's go toward this little finger and we will turn it into the actual little finger. So going along this shape that we've created with the rounder shape like that. Going toward the inside part and starting to create a little finger here. So create something like that. When we have it, going toward the next little finger that we have right here and starting to repeat what we have closer to the left. And finishing up with everything by creating another finger right here too. Now let's get rid of this scheme that we've created. So we are going to our lace and hiding the layer that we have for our scheme. And let's work a little bit onto this hand that we've created. So if we need to fix something, we will go maybe with a smaller size of the brush and we will adjust it nicely. So let's go over the lines that we have with our eraser and with our brush, and we will adjust everything that we need to adjust right here. So go along the lines, take a look at everything from the distance and decide whether you maybe need to adjust some parts, maybe soften some elements, maybe work a little bit more onto the thickness of the fingers right here. Take a look at your illustration from the distance, decide whether it looks fine or not. We are creating some kind of the hand like that, so we will need to create these little fingers in that way. If you want to play a little bit with the overall shape of the fingers, you're of course welcome to go and do that. You also can play a bit with this hands shape. So go and do what you need to do. And when we have the result like that, let's go and position it onto our face. So what we're going to be doing is selecting our arrow key on the top left, uniform method, and we are dragging this thing closer to our face. Let's make it slightly smaller and let's rotate it by going to this green node. Let's find the placement for it. So for example, let's go with something going in that way. We will need to position it on one side, so we will have the opposite side too. So try to look at this line that you have in the middle. Let's go with, for example, something going in that way. And when we have it, let's go and make a copy of this element. So again, we are going to our layers. We are swiping the layer with the hand from right to left and choosing the option duplicate. Now, when we have the second copy, we will go again to our arrow key on the top left, uniform method, using the flip horizontal option on the bottom. Now going toward the opposite sides, rotating everything, finding the placement for these elements, taking a look at everything from the distance if we need to. So let's go and find the placement for it. If you want to maybe make it slightly smaller, you are welcome to go and do that. If you want to rotate it even more, again, you are welcome to go and do what you need to do right here. So for example, let's go with something going in that way. And then we will go to our layers and we'll merge these two layers together. So again, putting one finger on the layer on the top, another on the layer on the bottom, making a pinch movement. And let's continue by creating the arms right here. So going again to our brush, going with the previous size of the brush that we had, and going firstly toward the corners that we have right here on the bottom. So let's go and create the line going in that way, and then we will go closer to the shape of the center, to this line that we have in the center. We will create the kind of triangular shape on the bottom like that. So we are creating the elbows right here. Now, when we have these elbows, we will go toward our hands and we will start to create a straightly looking line going down in that way and connect it with the shape that we've created on the bottom. Again, if you feel that you want to maybe adjust the shape slightly, maybe adjust it in any way that you want, you are welcome to go and do that. Let's create a nice result right here. So when we have the result like that, if you want to erase some lines that you don't need, go and erase them. When we have the flatter line like that, let's go toward this not rectangle, triangular thing on the bottom and continue creating it like that. As for the second part right here, we will go right here. Firstly, we will create a nice like deep right here and going not to the end of this line, but a little bit toward this side. We will need to create a bit of an angular line right here. So we will go and create a very soft curve going in that way. Again, connect it nicely with the shape on the top. If you need to erase some parts, go and erase them. Let's go and do something similar on the opposite side too. So going toward this line that we've created on the bottom and again starting to create the line that will be quite straight on the top. So going like that, starting to create a line, connecting it nicely with our hands. Again, if you want to maybe play around with the hands, maybe soften up the overall curve that we have on the top or create something different right here, you're welcome to go and do that. Make a nice connection with the shape that you are working on onto the bottom parts. Try to make this line pretty straight. A little bit curvature here will be fine, but not too much. Going toward the bottom, again, working onto these elbows things. Creating something going in that way, going outside slightly. And again, finishing up by creating this part right here, a little bit curvier right here. So starting from the top, creating the thing like that, trying to match it with the previous side. So if we need to adjust something, going and adjusting it. Again, stepping a bit from this line that we have on our guiding line and starting to create a little curvature right here. So going like that and creating our hands. We also will need to pay attention to the thickness of the arms that we are creating right here. So everything should be pretty similar to the opposite side. So if we need to go and work onto the thickness, we will go and do that. So for example, we can go and straight away maybe adjust this part slightly and create something going in that way. So let's work with our brush and with our eraser and adjust everything that we need to adjust right here. Also take a look at size that you are working on right here. If you need to, again, go and work on it and adjust something, go and do that. When we have the result like that, let's get to our brush one more time and let's finish up with the body that we have right here. So we are going toward the neck and we are going slightly lower to create the cut of our short that we are going to be creating right now. When we have this cut done, let's go toward this little part and create a line going in that way. Now going towards the corner right here and starting to create a little shoulder. So going like that and turning it into a very soft curve, going down and starting to create an arm right here, an arm. So when we have it going toward the opposite side, we can go and continue creating our arm here too. So going and creating something going in that way. And then let's create the short. So for the short, we are going from the corners that we have on the top and we will go with the line like that. Doing the same onto the opposite side too. Going like that very nicely. And then going slightly higher than the intersection right here and starting to create the kind of the ellipse like that. Now let's work a little bit more onto this shape. We will need to have like the line right here onto the top a little bit higher than we have it onto the bottom. So going like that and doing the same onto the opposite side too. So again, starting by creating a little ellipse, going like that, connecting it nicely with the shape and defining it even more by making the lines a little bit more visible. Decide on the shape. If you want to go a little bit more open with it, you are welcome to go and do that. Erase the lines that you don't need if you want to. So going like that and erasing everything that we don't need. Now, when we have the result like that, let's finish up with the short. So if we need to go and maybe adjust the line right here on the top, we will go and do that. If we need to go and adjust some other lines, we will go and do that. We will go toward the middle part and let's go and create some kind of the wavy line like that. That will be some kind of the short part that meeting the bottom part. So when we have it, we also can go and maybe add some pattern, and we will go right here and add a bit of the line right here that will like go toward the bottom part. Now, when we have the result like that, for now, let's keep everything as it is. If we need to adjust something, we will go and adjust it later on. When we have it, we will go and start working onto our hair. So firstly, let's go toward our layers and probably let's create one more layer on top. Now, for the hair, firstly, let's go toward the top part of our head. We'll create a little line like that. And then we will go toward the middle part right here. And let's begin by creating a fringe. So for the fringe, let's go slightly lower than this line that we have right here for the like middle part of the head. We will make a little mark down like that, and then we will go and start to create a fringe going in that way. So create a very softly looking shape, and then let's finish it up by going toward the opposite side and creating something going in that way. So for now, let's just go and map out what we're going to be doing, because we are not supposed to create the hair perfectly from the first try. Let's go and define what we are going to be creating right here, and maybe later we will go and fix up everything by creating the cleaner lines. So let's create another strand of hair right here, and when we have it, let's go to the sides and let's finish up creating our fringe by creating two lines going in that way. Going a little bit lower with our shape. If we need to adjust some parts straight away to not create a total mess right here, let's go and do that. When we have it, let's go towards the middle part right here, toward the cheeks. And from here, we will go higher and create some strands of hair here too. So let's go from this middle part and we will go and start to create our strand of hair going up in that way. So going like that with very, very soft little shapes, going to the bottom and starting to cover a bit of the ear here just slightly. Going like that, starting to create our shape. Again, if you want to not create a total mess, you are welcome to go and erase some parts that you are working on right now that you don't need here. Going higher, and let's finish up creating the shape. And while we are creating hair, it's very good to think about the Roman Empire. Probably not. It's very good to think about the gravity right here. So we will need to have a bit of more weight on the bottom than we have on the top. So every strand of hair that is going here will go a little bit heavier on the bottom. And when we know that, we will go and create a little strand of hair going to the opposite side here. And we will connect everything nicely with the top parts too. So let's create something like that. Again, if we want, you can go and maybe adjust some parts straight away. When we have it, let's go to the opposite side and let's do something similar here. So again, going toward the cheek, and from the cheek starting to create a little thing going up in that way. Going toward the bottom, starting to create something here too, and creating like that. I probably want to go right here and maybe cover a bit of the eye and a bit of the weird place right here. So let's go like that, maybe create a different direction for this line. And again, it's not a linear process when we are creating the hair. It's like up to you whether you want to go cleanly with your shapes or if you want to later on to fix everything. For now, mapping out what we want to create right here. So let's go like that with these strands. Maybe we will add a bit of more volume right here onto this side too. So let's go like that. And let's continue by going over the top firstly. So we will go from this little mark down that we've created, and we will go down and start to create some kind of the shape of the hair right here. So going onto this line and continuing creating it down with a little curve. Now, when we have it, let's create another strand of hair right here, going closer toward the middle part. And next point will be to know where we want to finish the whole thing for our hair. So let's go to the left firstly, and we will mark down like one cell from the bottom. That will be the end of all the hair that we are creating. And as we have a bit of the tilt in the head, we will go toward the opposite side, and we will need to go a little bit higher with the end point of our hair right here. So let's go towards 2 cells points, and we will make a little mark down here too. So now we know where we need to finish up creating our hair. So with that knowledge, let's go and continue creating the hair over our left side. So for example, let's go and create another layer of hair right here, one cell before the end of everything. And we will go and create it in a bit of the fluffier way. So let's go and create a differently shaped curve. So we are going like that, going more toward the center and starting to define the shape like that. So creating some kind of the strands, creating the triangular looking elements right here. So going closer toward the overall shape of the girl and starting to create the curls going like that. Let's go toward the bottom and let's create a couple of strands here too. So going like on a curve, starting to create something going like that and finishing up by going closer to the shape that we have for the short. So let's go like that for now, maybe going to this part and creating some free strands of hair, creating something going like that. If we have some elements that we would like to get rid of, we will go and do that. We will grab our eraser and erase the parts that we don't need. If you want to go and maybe try to create something else right here, you are welcome to go and do that. You can go slightly outside the shape and maybe here to create some strands that will go out. When we have something going like that, for now, for mapping out parts, that's okay. We will go to the opposite side and we will start to create elements here too. So firstly, let's go somewhere right here where we have the ear and we will go with the shape going in that way. So very softly creating a curve, going with a big element like that, adding a bit of volume right here, going towards the inside part more and starting to create some elements here too. So going with curves like that, going toward the bottom and starting to finish up, wrapping up everything that we have right here. So going like that, creating a couple of more elements. You can go to the opposite side here too. It's up to you. You can go and create the free strands of hair. And we will also need to go to this part and we will need to add a bit of volume here because this part is a little bit closer to us and we will go and do it in that way. So let's go and add a bit of the hair parts right here to going like that and finishing up creating our hair going in that way. So again, if you want to work with your brush and with your eraser to clean up something right here, you are welcome to go and do that. I'll probably go and make this little strand of hair a little bit smaller to not mess up with the whole shape of the hair, and going right here and maybe softening up everything to create a nicer shape. So let's go like that. Let's think whether we want to adjust some parts or whether we are okay with everything. If we want, we can go and do that. You can go right now very messy and create the lines that later on you will kind of merge into something better. So for now, let's go with something going in that way and let's go to our layers and create one more layer on top. Now let's finish up with the very messy sketch right here by going toward the top and adding the summer element right here. So for our summer element, let's go with the glasses, the sunglasses, and we will do it in that way. Let's firstly go and create the shape of the box right here. We will go like that and we will create it in that way. So pretty big. Going in that way and starting to create the actual shape for our glasses. So firstly going toward the middle part, starting to create this part, like middle part of the glasses. And then going to the sides and starting to create the actual shape of the glasses right here. So let's go with rounded shape onto the bottom, going on both sides like that, going not too far away from the head on the top, but very big shape on the bottom. And then on the top, again, we will go and create the rounder shape right here, but slightly less rounded that we have it on the bottom. So for now, let's go with something like that. If you want to define the shape more, you are welcome to go and do that. You are welcome to go inside the shape and maybe add some thickness to this part, going like that, repeating the overall look that we have inside, and then going toward the sides right here and creating these little, these parts of our glasses. Going toward the opposite sides, creating this little thingy, and then we will need to create the handle right here, this part of the glasses, and we will need to touch our hair with it. And very conveniently, we have a little strand of hair right here, so that will be looking pretty good right here. Again, take a look at everything from the distance, decide whether it looks good or whether you want to maybe fix some parts or work onto some elements right here. When we have the result like that, let's finish up by creating a little bow on the top. So for this bow, we will go to this middle part, we'll go slightly toward the right from it. We will create a little shape going in that way, so a little bump. And then we will go towards the left side firstly, and let's create a line going like that. Actually, two lines. So creating a little bumpy shape like that, going to the opposite side to create the continuation of the bow right here too. You can play around with the size of this element. You can play around with the everything of this element. It's up to you. Try not to overdo it. If you want to overdo it. It's up to you again. We will need to go to these parts and we will need to create some kind of the element like that. Now, when we have the result like that, let's go and maybe work a little bit more onto our hair. So we will get back to our layers, and we actually don't need our little lines of like guiding lines anymore. So let's go and hide it. Let's find this layer. So it's here, we will hide it. And let's go find the layer with our hair. So it's here, and we will go and adjust the opacity of it. So let's go like that. Let's create one more layer on top, and let's define the hair a little bit more. So we have these guiding lines. We can go along them to the places where we like how it looks, and we can go to the other places and we can go and maybe play around with these elements a little bit more. So let's go and start creating our shapes right here one more time. So again, starting to create our shapes, going like that along the lines. Think straightly and think a little bit critically here what kind of lines you like and which lines are okay for you right now and which you probably want to go and maybe adjust. If you want to go some other areas and adjust them too, you are welcome to go and do that. So probably we will need to go right here and lower this line slightly to create a nicer shape. Maybe this one will go a little bit lower too. Think a little bit of your lines and create nice shapes right here. Probably something going like that. Probably this part will go a little bit towards the left too. So going in that way, starting to create the shapes that will look nice. Again, it's not permanent what we are creating right now. We can fix everything later on. So don't worry too much. Going toward these parts, probably going a little bit curlier this time, going toward this part, starting to create the lines that will look nice. So for example, let's go with a bit more volume on the bottom. So going like that, erasing the parts that we don't need, going in that way, starting to define more strands of hair right here. So for example, going with another curve, going in that way, creating a bit of volume right here. So figuring out what we want to achieve right here, the look that we are pursuing. So going and creating a bit of strands of hair right here, something that has more definition. Now, when we have it on this side, let's go a little bit down. Let's create a strand of hair right here. So going like that, a bit of the space between the next mass of hair, going toward these little parts and starting to define them too. Connect it nicely with this strand of hair and define these parts in a way that will look nice. So probably we will go with a bigger shape firstly. So let's create something going like that. Again, we are walking along the lines that we have and going in a curvature, like curvy thing, going like that, going toward this part and starting to create a couple of rounder shapes right here. So for example, let's go with something like that, and we will try to connect it nicely with the shape that we already have onto our screen. If you don't know how it looks, you are always welcome to get back to your brush, to your eraser, and create the elements that will look nice. So for example, maybe we'll go with the bigger shape right here, and then we'll go toward the bottom, create a couple of maybe strands that will look like singular, and then going down and creating a couple more right here onto the bottom. So now when we have it on this side, let's go and work onto the opposite one. So we are again working with this little strand of hair. So you can create something going in that way, going towards the bottom part. And let's start with this little place right here, closer to the shape of our girl. So let's go with a big strand like that. And then we will go toward this part and we will create some kind of the strand that will look a bit separate, but not too separate from everything that we have. And we also will need to follow the direction of the hair. So we are going and creating something going in that way. We can add a bit of volume right here by creating something going like that, going toward the top and creating the line like that, going to the bottom. And we will connect everything nicely with another strand of hair that will go from the overall mass that we have for our hair. Going like that and creating something going in that way. Don't go too close to the elements that you have right here for the separate elements. So for example, with this strand of hair, we can go a little bit higher from our shoulder to create something going like that. So we are not touching our shoulder and we are not connecting it with it. Going toward the bottom after we've created this little thing, and let's create another strand of hair right here. So going like that, finishing up by creating something going in that way. And when we have the result like that, let's take a look at everything without these lines that we have for our grid right here. So let's go again to our wrench icon over the top left, drawing guides, going and hiding everything. Now, firstly, to continue with the fixes that we want to do right here, if we want to do the fixes, let's go to our layers and let's merge everything that we have right here. So for the girl, let's go and find everything that we need and we will make a pinch movement like that. Let's make sure that everything is on one layer. If it's not, we can get rid of all the lines, all the layers that we don't need. So for example, we had the scheme for our hand right here. If you don't need it, go swipe it from right to left and choose the option delete, and then continue connecting everything and putting everything on one layer. And now let's go and clean it a little bit by firstly selecting our eraser and go into all the overlapping parts and erasing them. So let's go to the hair, let's go to the hand right here, let's erase all the lines that we don't need. So going like that and starting to clean up our sketch. Go into all of the lines, getting rid of everything that we don't need. And now when we have no weird overlapping parts, let's go and fix it a little bit more by going toward our Magic Wand tool. We will go under Liquify and we will use the option push. And of course, we will go to the size slider, we will adjust the size of the brush that we're going to be pushing with. And we can go with this brush to some places and we can sculpt our shapes a little bit. So let's spend some time here, go into all of the places that we want to adjust. We will go and adjust them very, very easily and very, very nicely. So let's spend some time here. After you're done fixing everything here, let's tap onto our Magic Wand tool one more time. And then if you see that you can go and maybe adjust some lines a little bit more, so you have some maybe wobbly lines or something, we can go to these places manually and adjust them a little bit. And also we can go and add a bit more details toward our little girl, so some kind of accessories here. For example, let's go toward this hand to this arm and we will go and create some kind of the, I don't know, like a bracelet or something. So going like that and starting to create the thing like that. Again, we will erase some parts that we don't need. So let's go with very wobbly little thingy right here. And then we also can go and start to maybe figuring out what else we want to fix manually. So for example, we can go right here to the fringe. We can adjust it here, going a little bit softly with the overall shape, taking a look at everything, deciding whether we again want to go and adjust some parts manually. We will go and do that. If we want to maybe go a bit higher than the eyes and add some kind of the eyelids right here, we are welcome to go and do that too. So take a look at everything right here, decide whether you maybe want to go to some places and adjust something, go and adjust everything. And when we are done with adjusting everything here, let's move on to our next part where we will add our clean lines. So let's begin working onto our clean lines firstly by going to our layers. We will go to this layer where we have our sketch. We will tap onto the N icon and adjust the opacity of this layer. When you did it, let's tap on the layer. Let's create one more layer on top and let's go and switch the brush to create our clean lines. Let's go to the brush library. We'll go to the inking folder and we will select technical pen brush. Let's also tap on this brush to make everything very, very smooth. We will go under stabilization on the left and we'll be playing with amount of streamline and amount of stabilization. So you can set these settings the same way as you see them right now onto your screen, or you can go firstly to drawing pad, try it out here, tweak these options if you want to, and when you are satisfied with everything, let's hit done over our top right. Now, when it is done, let's also go toward our color palettes and switch the color to something more suitable right here. So for example, let's go with these darker hair lines. When we are done with this, let's also go and set the size of the brush to something around 7%. We don't need everything to be very, very bulky and a little bit thick. We will go with pretty thin lines right here. So when we are all set, let's start creating our lines. We don't need to repeat everything with 100% of similarity to what we have onto our sketch. sketch. If we want to tweak something, we will go and tweak it. And basically what we need to do right here is to create clean lines, closed lines, and nicely looking lines. So let's go and start doing it. Also, we can go and not like create the parts of the lines, we can create the full line, and then where we have the overlapping part, we will go and cut this part with our eraser. So you can go and start from the parts that are like one part, for example, recreate the face firstly and then create some different elements, or you can go partially and start recreating the elements one by one. So it's up to you whether you want to go with like first option or the second one. Let's go and start recreating the face firstly. So when we have the lines for our face, let's continue by going down right here and creating the line for the neck. And we are going to all of these areas that we have right here and starting to recreate them with our lines. So the same way as before, going and starting to create the lines. As for the closed lines, we will need to go and make sure that we don't have any gaps into our lines, and that means that we will need to work onto the connections of the lines and make the lines without any gaps. So later on when we're going to be adding our colors, it will be easier for us to do that. So let's continue by creating the line right here. We also can use all the options that we used before. So you can hold your line at the end. You can use the option on the top, the editing tool, if you need to adjust the curvature of the line, for example, or something else. Go and use everything that you want to use right here. Use straight away your brush and your eraser if you want to adjust some lines straight away. You can go and start doing it while you are creating the lines, or you can create all the lines firstly and then use your eraser to create the clean cuts right here. So for example, if you see that you have the lines that you need to get rid of straight away, you can go and erase them and create everything in a nice and neat way straight from the beginning. Also, while you are creating the clean lines, you can think a little bit about the flow. So you can go and maybe add some elements to create something a bit in a way that it is like moving or something. So you can think about it too and maybe add some elements in that way. So for example, we can go and maybe add some little lines going like that. So it's kind of part in part right here, or a little bit of the detail part. And straight away we can go to all of the lines right here and start thinking about these things and start adding the details here to the lines and to the overall mass that we are creating right here. So for example, when we are done with our little fringe right here, let's go and recreate the eyebrows. Again, you don't need to recreate them in a way that you have them on the sketch. If you want to do that, of course, go and do that. But you also can play around and maybe create something different right here and maybe try out it a couple of times to create a nicer shape if you want to. Now, when we have these eyebrows, let's go and work onto our eye. So again, we are creating a very tippy little thing right here onto one of the sides, and then we are going a little bit wider with the shape and starting to create this wing right here. We are trying to make everything very, very smooth. So when we are creating the connections between the parts, we are trying to create very smooth connections, and we are trying to achieve a very smooth and seamless result. So as if we are creating everything with one line. So pay attention to the connections and start to create the lines in a very, very smooth way. And mostly think about the outside parts. So if you're creating the eyes like I'm doing right now, think about the outside parts. You don't need to pay too much attention to the inside parts, because inside part will be like covered with color right here. So we don't need to think a lot about that. When we have the shape like that, when it is not having any gaps, we will go and drag and drop the color inside. We'll make sure that our corners right here are recolored too. So if you need to go manually to some of the areas and recolor them, go and do that. You also can fix some parts with the eraser. So for example, if you see that you can go along the line and create something different right here, you are welcome to use your eraser. And with the eraser, you can use all the options that you used with your brush. So you can hold your line at the end, so you can go to the editing mode and create something going in that way. Again, take a look at everything right here. Take a look at the connections. When you have this very nicely looking shape, let's go and create another little shape that we will again connect nicely with the overall shape that we have. So we are trying to avoid creating very strong corners, very angular things right here. We will go and smooth everything up and create a little eyelash going in that way. Now, when we have it, we will go toward the topper part right here, and we will create a little eyelid onto this side. Now, going toward the opposite side, and we can either go and recreate the eye the same way as we did it onto the right part, or we can go and maybe copy this thing and put it onto the opposite side. So let's go and try to do that. Very easily, we will go to our S ribbon icon over the top left. We'll use freehand method. We will go toward this area where we have the eye done. We will loop it around when only this element is selected. We will use 3 fingers. We will swipe them down. We will use firstly the option duplicate. And we will go to our layers. You can see we have the copied element right here. We'll go to the arrow key on the top left, and we will use the option flip horizontal. Now going toward the opposite side, rotating it, making it smaller, trying to match it with the shape that we have onto our sketch. Going like that, trying to match it nicely, taking a look at the opposite side, trying to put it on the same line, and overall trying to create something similar to what we have onto the opposite side. We are trying to match the rotation, we are trying to match the size here too. So try to create it in a very nice way. If you are going a little bit beyond the frame, that's okay. We will accept everything when we are done by tapping onto our arrow key. We will take a look at everything right here. And when you are copying things, when you are making like the selection and when you are moving your thing like from different parts to different parts, we will need to go and zoom in our canvas, and you will see that some of the lines that you were adjusting, the lines that you were dragging with your tool right here with the S ribbon icon and transform tool, they are starting to look a little bit blurred. So we will need to go over these lines and we will need to recreate them a little bit so they look crisp one more time again. So going along this line, starting to create them in the same way as we have them, so trying to trace them. And when we are done with this task, we also will go toward our layers and we will merge these 2 layers together so everything that we have for our lines is on one layer. So tapping on the layer on the top and using the option merge down, and then continuing to create other elements. So let's go and recreate our little mouth right here. For the mouth, let's go with the similar shape that we have onto our sketch, but we will adjust it slightly by firstly going to the 18 mode and trying to make it a little bit more rounded right here. And then we will go towards the sides and we will make the corners right here a little bit more seen. So we are adding a bit of color right here and a bit of texture right here and a bit of, I don't know, something right here. So going like that and trying to make the lines a little bit more seen and a little bit more rounded. So going like that, and also we will grab our eraser and we will go along this line and we will try to go closer to the edge and we will start to create a very, very thin line like that. So let's try to create something like that. So we will have like bits of the corners of the mouth right here. So try it. Go toward the bottom part, for example, and try to create maybe it in not that rounded way. So you are welcome to play around with this thing. Go to the opposite side again and let's adjust it here too. Now when we have it, let's get back to our brush and let's continue by going to some of the other lines and recreate them too. So again, we don't need to recreate everything similar to what we have onto our sketch. If you want to experiment a little bit and create something different, you are always welcome to go and do what you need to do right here. For example, let's play a bit with this line. Let's create a bit of the like super rounded hook onto the bottom part. Again, playing around with our connections right here, going toward the bottom part. And for example, let's go from here and let's create a curve going like that. So we will try to hold it at the end. We'll go to our editing tool. We will go and adjust the curvature of this element if we want to. We are trying to add a bit of the volume toward the bottom part. You also can take a look at everything from the distance to decide whether you like how it looks or whether you want to maybe go and adjust something here. So that will be seen from the distance better than when you are zoomed in. So take a look at it. If you like it, tap on the screen, take a look at the connections right here, go to some of the areas where you need to add these connections and add them toward the elements that you need to add these connections to. If you see that maybe you want to go and elongate this part or do something else with this part and you don't want to go and recreate this part from the beginning, We can do again the same thing. We can go to our S ribbon icon, we can select the element that we want to adjust. So for example, this little strand of hair, and then we'll go to our arrow key and, for example, move it slightly down. So again, you can move it, you can take a look at it from the distance to decide whether you like it or not. If you are satisfied with it, tap on the first option that you were using, it was S ribbon icon, and continue by recreating the details that you need to add right here. So for example, we will need to fill this gap and make a seamless line right here. And of course, we will go and erase this little part that we don't need. Now, when we have the result like that, again, pay too close attention to these elements where you have the connections, where you were erasing some parts or where you are adding details. To these elements, you will need to pay attention because they are very seen when you are looking at the whole picture, and we will need to create a very seamless result right here. So let's continue by going to this little part, and we will go to this little curl. We will go outside and we will start to recreate it too. So again, we are using all the options that we used before, and right here we will probably go and make the line that will look slightly different. So we will need to continue creating this line that we have on the bottom and make a connection with this shape so it will look nice. So trying to create everything in a very rounded way and in a very nice way. When we have it, we will go toward the top and we will continue creating this line going up. And also, while we are creating these lines, we need to think of the overall shape that we have for the hair. So how we have it onto our sketch probably won't work right here, because if we create the line going like that, what kind of line is it, where it's going to? We will need to make some connections with the shape, the overall mass of the hair. So we'll need to think about gravity here too. So for example, if we have this strand of hair that goes right here, we'll need to go from the top and we will need to make a believable line, a believable curve right here that will look believable. So we will go and create something going like that. And of course, we will go and create a nice connection right here. We will use our arrow key, we will use our brush, and we will adjust these parts to make everything nice. When we have it, let's go and recreate a little ear right here. So for the ear, we can go with a shape like that. We can hold it at the ends. We can go to the editing mode and adjust it, rotate it, make it differently shaped, connect it with everything that we have. Take a look at everything from the distance to make sure that it doesn't look too weird. So it is attached to our head. So we will need to make sure that it, again, is believable so that it is attached to our head. So if you need to do something here, you can go and adjust it. You can make it smaller. You can adjust the placement of this element. It's up to you. So for example, let's position it in that way. That is kind of believable. We will tap on the screen to accept everything. We will grab our eraser and we will erase all the extra lines that we don't need. Now, when we have it, let's continue by going towards probably the bottom part. We'll continue working with our hair. So let's go from the shape that we have for our ear, and we will again create a little curve right here. To go in the same way as we have it onto our sketch, taking a look at it from the distance and continuing to create this big shape going up in that way. So again, using all the options that we used before to create a nice looking element, and then continuing to create another little curve right here. And again, we will need to make it believable, so we are starting to create a shape that will be going in attachment with our overall shape of the hair. So you can go a little bit higher to make sure that it looks nice. So for example, we will go from here, we will start to create a curl going in that way. When we have this curl, we will go and start to add the bottom part of it, working on it, trying to make it very, very nice and very, very smooth, creating something like that, going toward the bottom part and starting to add this volume part onto the bottom. Again, we don't need to create the whole thing straight away. We can go partially, but we will need to pay attention to the connections between the parts that we are creating. So if you have some nicely, not super nicely looking lines like that, we will go with our brush, with our eraser, and we will smooth things up right here. Let's continue by going to our brush. Let's go probably right here to fill the area slightly with another curl. So going like that, creating something going like that, go into our editing tool, working on this element and starting to build up our curls and hair generally. And we also will need to pay attention to the details like that. We don't need to touch the lines with one another. So when we are creating different elements, we don't need to touch them because we will create some tension right here. It doesn't look good. We will need to either have some space between the parts, or we will need to like overlap them. So when we have this thing, let's continue by going over the top and starting to add the details on the top too. So for example, let's start a little bit higher. And if you see that you already have a bit of the like part right here that you will definitely go onto, and you will adjust the parts right here, and you will add the line right here, and you don't want to do that, you don't want to later on grab your eraser and very precisely go to the places and adjust them, you can go create one more layer on top, and onto this new layer you can create very easily your elements, and then without any adjustments, without any like pain, go to these places and erase the parts that you don't need. So we can go and create the part like that. We can go and add the detail inside. So we will add a bit of thickness, again trying to make it believable, trying to go with the flow right here and create a bit of the thicker part on the top and a bit of the thinner part onto the bottom, trying to connect it nicely with the overall shape. And we will go then to this place where we have this a little bit overlapping part. We'll grab our eraser, and very easily we will go to this element and we will adjust it with our eraser. Now when we have it, we will go to our layers, we will merge these two layers together so everything is on one layer one more time, and we will continue by going and adding other details to this part. So for example, let's go from the top and let's start to create the continuation of the scroll right here. And again, we will need to make everything believable, so we are thinking about gravity right here, we are thinking about the volume on the bottom and how overall hair behaves. So we are going like that and starting to think about these things, trying not to overwhelm us and trying to add the details in that way too. We also can go and erase some lines. So for example, if you have some thicker elements, or if you don't want to separate the things one from another, the strands of hair, you are welcome to create the little cuts right here and create the overall shape in that way. And of course, when you are creating the clean lines and overall lines, you can make up your mind and create something different right here. So for example, you already have created a line and you don't like how it looks, so go along this line and create something different right here. So when we have the result like that, let's get back to our brush and let's go toward this part where we have the back part of the hair, and let's recreate it in that way. Of course, we can go and try out something different. So for example, we can maybe create a bit of the dip right here, a bit of the like dance, a bit of the volume right here too. So you can create a line first like that, and then maybe play around with it on the bottom to create a bit of the like volume right here. If you need to erase some parts, go grab your eraser and adjust the parts that you don't need. Again, take a look at everything from the distance and decide whether you maybe want to try it out one more time. It's always like a good thing to do. So for example, we can go a little bit closer toward the shape, toward the overall like shape of the head right here. Try it out one more time, create it in that way, try out something different. For example, that probably will work. We will be sure of it later on when we will see everything without the line of the sketch. We can go and adjust it later on too. Let's continue by going toward the bottom and continue working onto our hair. So let's go toward this little part. And again, we don't need to repeat everything with 100% of similarity. If you want to maybe try out something different, create maybe strands of hair going toward the opposite side to create some interest right here, you are welcome to go and do that too. Again, think about the flow right here, try to create some volume and try to create some movement into your hair if you want to go and create something peculiar like that. When we have it, go toward this little part and let's finish up with this right part of the hair by creating a couple of more strands of hair right here too. So let's go closer toward the shape of the short right here and create the line going in that way. Let's continue by going toward the bottom part, again thinking about the volume, thinking about the roundness of these elements and the like curvature, all these elements, going like that, starting to add a bit of interest by adding some cuts inside the shape. So creating something going like that maybe, or trying to create the shape firstly and then trying to create a cut. So let's create around the shape like that and trying to create the nicely looking element right here. So again, try it out a couple of times, go and create one more thing right here to finish up with the overall look of our hair. Again, try to create something nice, try to create something like rounded and cute and everything, and the overall look will look nice, I guess. If you need to have a couple of attempts right here, go and do what you need to do. Go toward the inside parts and outside parts and add the details toward these parts too. So for example, let's go like that, and maybe we will add a bit of the interest right here toward this side by creating a strand of hair like that. We will probably need to go like that toward these parts, edit it a little bit, edit the curvature, erase the part that is overlapping, and then add some volume inside the shape by maybe adding some cut right here too. Let's continue by going to the opposite side and starting to do the same things here. So starting from this little curve, starting to go higher with it, trying to make it believable so it goes with the shape of the head, going toward the bottom part, creating some volume here, going again the same way as we did before onto the opposite side. So let's not touch the hair that we have right here on the bottom with our little shape of the hand that later on we will create. And let's create probably something going like that. Straight away we can work onto this little part so we can thin it up. We can create a bit of the volume right here, a bit of the nicely looking shape. We can go over the bottom and we can create another shape right here. Probably we can go with probably a little cut right here. Maybe not that weird. And also if you feel that maybe on the left side it's a bit harder to work on, it's because we have like a flow of the hands and it's not working onto this side nicely. So we can go to our wrench icon over the top left, we can go under canvas and we can use flip horizontal option, so it will be easier for us to go with the flow of our hands and work onto this element. So let's continue by adding a couple of more lines, working onto everything that we have right here and starting to add like the clean lines right here, right? You can go back and forth with this flip horizontal option, so probably it will be easier for you to go to some areas and create them in a normal way and then maybe flip the canvas to create smaller elements or bigger elements or to see clearly what you are doing right here. So let's continue working onto our hair and recreating everything that we have onto our sketch. You also can add some elements that you don't have onto your sketch. So for example, you can go with some strands of hair to add more interest right here. You can try out different things, erase parts, go and repeat what you had before and maybe create something different right here. When we are done with these parts, we also can go and work a little bit onto these connections right here. So we can go with our eraser, erase the parts that we don't need. Again, paying attention to the connections, trying to make every line that we have right here seamless and smooth. So again, if we see straight away that we can go to some other areas and adjust them, we will go and do that. So when we are done with these top parts, probably we will need to go right here toward this little shape and adjust the line right here. So again, we are trying to make a believable shape, so we will need to go with the flow and adjust the lines to match it. So let's go and get rid of all the lines that we don't need. So again, trying to make everything very, very smooth and trying to keep the line weight similar everywhere. So if we need to go along the lines and adjust them, we will go and do that too. Also can go to this little line and maybe adjust the curvature of this line too. So again, pay attention to the overall gravity right here. Try to create very, very nicely looking lines. When we have it, let's go toward the bottom and let's work onto these little parts right here. So when we have it, let's go toward this part. Let's again create a little curve. We are trying to match it with the overall pattern that we are creating with these curls. So we are trying to create a nice curve right here. Going to the bottom, starting to create this rounder shape, connecting it with the overall shape that we have on the top, trying to work onto the roundness, onto the curvature, onto the sides, onto everything. Working onto the bottom part here too, starting to create another curl. So again, using all the options that we used before. If you want, we can probably try it out one more time, maybe create it in a more rounded way, creating some cuts, nice ones, creating something going like that, starting to recreate the shape that we have onto our sketch right here. Again, trying to match it with the previous line, trying to make a very nicely looking curl and curve, and trying to add some weight toward the bottom part and create a nicely looking element. For example, going like that, straight away we can work onto this corner right here. So going manually and again, starting to add a bit of the flow right here. So you can go and elongate this part slightly to create a bit of a movement. You can do the same with this little element that we have on the top. So creating something like that, you can go and maybe create a bit of the curl going inside. So for example, something like that, you can try it out. You can take a look at it. If you don't like it, get back to what you had before. So let's go along this shape and adjust it nicely. Now let's continue by adding the detail right here. So again, creating a nice curve, going like that, trying to make it believable. So again, taking a look at everything from the distance. If we like how it looks, we are continuing by going right here and adding another little shape right here too. For example, let's go with something like that. We will make a nice connection right here onto the bottom. And maybe we will go a little bit over this line and we will adjust it slightly by adding a bit more of the volume right here to this side. Going like that, starting to recreate the shape, tracing it slightly, going like that, and erasing everything that we don't need. Of course, you can go and adjust the size of your eraser and erase it in a nicer way, in a quicker way. But again, make sure that everything that you are erasing and the connection that you are making with the eraser and with the brush look nice and that the line weight is similar everywhere. Now, when we have it, let's go and create a strand of hair that will go a little bit like freely right here. So going like that and starting to create our curve, connecting it on the top, and then we will go right here and we will create thinner looking shape right here onto this side. So again, trying to make it believable. When we have it, let's go to the bottom and let's finish up with our curls right here. So let's firstly go right here to a little bit of the like single shape right here, going like that, starting to add it right here, making a little bit of the curl, going towards the inside part and starting to add the curls here too. So let's finish up with the hair by creating a couple more of these little curvy elements right here. Now, when we are done, let's take a look at everything without the lines that we have for our sketch. So we will go to our layers and hide our previous layer. So we will go to the lines and we will see whether we can go to some of them and maybe adjust them, soften them up, or if we have some elements that we need to go and erase, maybe some lines that we missed or something. We also can go to the tips if we want to have like half of the line right here, for example. We will need to go and soften up the top part of this line. So everything looks very, very smooth and very, very nice. And again, if we see that somewhere we miss something, for example, the line weight, we will go along these lines and we will adjust everything that we need to adjust. Also, if we have the strands of hair like that, this part looks a little bit weird because it doesn't have like the back part of it. So we can go a little bit higher than the shape and we can create the back part of the hair. So we will have some kind of a twist right here. So when we have it, let's go through all of the shapes that we have right here. And if we see that we miss something, whether we need to go and erase some parts or add to these parts, we will go and do that very quickly. Pay closer attention to the elements, for example, like right here, because we have the thinner element right here where we have the connection with the shape and it doesn't look like too good. So we can go to these places and we can thick these elements a little bit up. So we will go and add a thicker element onto these connections too. And we will do it with every little connection, like similar to what I mentioned right now. And again, if you want to, we can go to some of the areas and we can add a bit of the lines like we added right here. So we can go to some of the like corners or something and add a bit of interest by creating some details in that way with kind of smaller lines. So you can spend some time here and create these little elements to these some parts that you want to add them to. Now, when we're done with this, let's get back to our layers and unhide our layer with this sketch. And also we can go to some of the areas right here and maybe add the strands of hair that will be very, very thin, and we will create them only with our line right here, with the weight that we are using right now. So for example, we can go right here, we can add some kind of the strands like that. We can go to the other side and edit here too. So don't create too many of these parts, only a couple of them. And when you are done with it, let's go and work on some other elements. So for example, let's go and start recreating the hand. Let's go and do it on a separate layer, of course. We will go and create one more layer into our layers, and we will start recreating the hands. We will do one perfect hands like at the time, and then we will flip it and we will make a copy onto the opposite side here too. So for example, let's go from here and let's start recreating our little fingers right here. Again, if you want, you can keep everything the same way as you have it onto your layer with the sketch, or maybe you want to experiment a little bit. So take a look at everything from the distance, try to pay attention to the direction of the fingers that you have right here, try to pay attention to the thickness of the elements, try to match them size-wise and like thickness-wise. So if you need to have a couple of attempts, go and do what you need to do right here. Now let's go toward this little finger that we have, and we will create the shape going in that way. Again, try not to create very angular things right here. We are trying to create a very cute illustration, a kawaii illustration. So if you have the opportunity to go and soften the things up, go and do it. Let's try to go toward the bottom part. Let's try to create a line right here. So probably we'll need to go right here, and we will need to have a bit of the like shape like that, going toward the top and adjusting it slightly. You can like have a very nice reference right here onto your hands. You can make the arm like that, and you can take a look how it looks and recreate it right here. So let's go and try to continue creating our little hand right here too. We also can add some details right here. So for example, a little line going in that way, that will be like this part. When we have it, we will go and make a copy of it and put it on the opposite side too. So let's go to our layers. Let's swipe the layer from right to left to the option duplicate, arrow key, flip horizontally, and going right here to this part and trying to match it with what we have onto our sketch. So for example, going like that, rotating it a little bit, go and taking a look at everything from the distance, try not to make it different in size. So for example, going like that, maybe rotating it slightly so we don't have this weird little shape right here onto this part, trying to match it with the overall hands and the overall shape of the arm that we have onto the opposite side. Trying to match it with the thing that we have onto our sketch, so trying to match it the arm right here too. When we have it, tapping onto our arrow key and continuing by going firstly to our layer where we have our face. If we have some overlapping parts that we probably have right here, we will go and erase them with our eraser. If you see that you can go and maybe adjust some parts a little bit different, make it like a little bit different on this side from what you have onto the opposite side, you can get back to the layer where you have the second hand, and we will go and recreate some elements differently. So for example, we can go and get rid of this part and maybe adjust it slightly by creating a line going slightly higher right here. Again, if you have some overlapping parts, go to the needed layer where you have them and erase these overlapping little shapes that you don't need. Work with your brush, work with your eraser, try to match everything with the size of the lines, and everything should look nice right here. So probably something like that will work. So we can go to our layers and merge everything that we have right here. If you see that, you can go to, for example, the area where you have the hair right here or the face line. You can go firstly to this layer, erase these lines very easily, and then merge everything that we have right here to continue working onto our line. So let's go and merge everything, and let's grab our brush and let's go toward our little arms right here, and we will recreate them the same way as we have them on the sketch. Or of course, if you want to go and experiment, we will go and experiment a little bit. Trying to create a bit of the straighter shape right here onto this side on the right, and going toward the bottom to create the elbows right here. With the elbows going a little bit outside, so creating the thing like that, trying to create a bit of the flatter shape right here onto the bottom because we have the elbows standing on something, so we will need to make it happen right here too and make sure that we know about it. When we have it, going toward the top right here and connecting this thing with the shape on the top. Now to finish up with everything, let's go and recreate the short right here. So for example, we can go and create slightly different shape. We can go and create a bit of the shoulder right here. When we have it, we will go toward the bottom part and we will create this little nicely looking cut. So you can hold the line at the end, you can go to the editing tool and match it with the previous line like that. You can adjust the curvature and everything. When we have it, we will tap on the screen and take a look at everything, whether we like it or not. If we are okay with everything, make sure that you don't have any gaps into your lines and continue adding the shoulder right here onto this side. Now when we have it, let's also go and recreate this cut that we have on the top and continue adding the elements right here to recreate everything that we have for our hands and arms and everything. So probably let's go and start recreating this thing. We will try to match it with the hand that we have on the top, so trying to create a line like that. Erasing the part that we don't need to pay too much attention to the line right here because it will be overlapped with our little bracelet or something, but we will need to pay attention to the connection right here so everything looks nice. Continuing to work onto our shape going in that way, trying to remain the same size of the arm right here. So if we need to go a little bit slimmer right here, we will go and try to do that. We also will need to try to recreate this similar curve right here, so we will go and try to do that. So if we need a couple of times to make it happen, we will go and do that. Let's continue by going toward this bottom part, making a bit of a flatter shape right here onto the bottom, and continuing by going up and creating the similar shape to what we have right here onto this side. Now when we have it, let's continue by recreating our little shoulder right here. So going like that and starting to create the rounder shape. Again, you can hold your line at the end, you can go to the editing tool on the top, try to match the size, try to match the level of the shoulder that we have on the opposite side. So if we need to move it, we will go and do that. When we have the result like that, let's continue by going down with a bit of the dent right here and then going a little bit outside with a little curve. So going in that way, starting to create our line, trying to match it with the opposite side. If we have some overlapping parts, we will go and erase them. If we have some parts that are having a little gap, we will go and add to these parts too. So now let's go toward the bottom and let's create this little shape of half of the ellipse or half of the circle. Hold it at the end, go to the editing tool over the top and try to match it with the shape that you have onto the opposite side. So try to match the rotation of this element. If you need to try it one more time, go and do what you need to do right here. So let's create it one more time. Let's go again to the editing tool. Let's adjust it slightly. So going like that, starting to play around with the overall shape right here, trying to keep it similar to what we have on the opposite side too. So let's create it in that way, and then we will get rid of all the lines that we don't need and connect all the lines that we need to connect. Now let's also go and recreate this little bracelet right here. So for example, let's go with half of the circles like that, going toward the opposite side, starting to recreate it here too. So creating some kind of the cloud shape right here. So let's go like that, going a little bit behind the shape, going toward the opposite side to recreate everything that we have right here and going on the top and starting to recreate it here too. Now grabbing our eraser and erasing everything that we don't need. Making sure that we don't have any gaps anywhere. If we need to go and adjust something, we will go and do that. We also can try to make everything believable right here by creating a bit of the back part of this thingy. So go into both of the sides and creating the little shape like that. So try to maybe create it one more time to create it in a believable way. When we have it, let's also pay attention to this little cut that we have. Let's recreate it here. Let's take a look at everything and let's go and recreate this little line right here. And also we'll finish up creating everything by creating a little line right here onto the bottom. So you can play a bit with the position of it. You can go a little bit higher with this shape And when you have it, make sure that you don't have any gaps and continue creating it right here onto this side. Now, when we have it, let's finish up with our little shapes over the top. So let's go and start recreating the shape that we have for the glasses. So let's get back to our list and create one more layer. It will be easier for us. And let's go and recreate one half of this element. So again, going over the top, starting to create a rounder shape. You can hold your line at the ends to make sure that everything is happening in a nice way. Going straight away underneath this line and adding a bit of thickness toward this part. If we need to move it, we will move it like that, and going along this overall shape and starting to recreate it. Try to make it in a rounder way, so if you have some kind of the very straight corners, go and get rid of them with your brush and with your eraser. Now let's go toward the bottom and let's start recreating this part here too. We probably could try to create everything with one line, but I'm not trusting myself, so I will go and create it partially. So we will go and create the part like that. We will go to the opposite part and create it here too. So going like that, trying to match it, go into the editing tool over the top and starting to create a nice shape for the glasses. So for example, let's go with something like that. We will go to this little corner, we will soften it up, creating a curve instead of this very straight corner, erasing the parts that we don't need. Trying to make nice connections, trying to make nicely looking element right here, very rounded and having nice lightweight line weights everywhere. We also can go and maybe play around with the Liquify tool slightly. So we can go and adjust these parts. We can go and maybe create something going in that way. Using the push option, starting to create the nicer shape right here. So for example, let's create something like that. Let's get back to our canvas. If we see that we could go through some of the lines and fix them, we will go and do that. So let's go and start recreating the lines with the manual labor right here. Now, when we have it, or kinda have it, we will go inside and we will recreate the shape by adding the thickness for our glasses. So basically going inside and recreating the similar shape to what we have outside. Let's take a look at it. If we want to adjust something, we will go and do that. So for example, we can soften this little corner right here, adjusting it with our brush, with our eraser. When we have it, we will go and make a copy of this thing and moving toward the opposite side. So let's go to our layer, swiping the layer from right to left, duplicate, going to our arrow key, moving this thing to the opposite sides, trying to position it on the same level that we have for our first little shape right here. When we have it, we will tap onto our layers and we will go and create this middle part of the glasses. So let's do it again on the new layer. Let's go right here in the middle and let's create the shape similar to what we had onto our sketch. And we are trying to remain the same thickness of this element to what we have on the glasses right here. If we like how it looks, we will go outside the shapes right here to the outside part, and we will go and create the shapes that will look like that. So one on one side, going to the opposite side and creating something similar here too. Now let's take a look at it, decide whether we did everything right, whether we need to maybe try it out one more time. We can try to go and actually make a copy of this thing by S-ribbon icon, freehand method, swiping down, duplicate, go into this flip horizontal option and moving this thing to the opposite side and trying to match it with the thing that we have onto the opposite side. If you need to flip it a couple of times, you are welcome to go and do that too. For example, let's go with something like that. Let's go to our layers and merge it with the previous layer. And also we will need to go and we will need to get rid of these lines that we have right here on the middle part. So let's get back to our layers and actually these lines here too. So we can go and either merge everything that we have for our glasses. So we can go and make the pinch movement like that, make sure that everything is on one layer, grabbing our eraser and erasing all the parts that we don't need. Now, when we have it, we can make it even nicer by going and adding a bit of a perspective right here. So when everything is on one layer and when we like the result like that, we will go to our arrow key on the top left and we will use the option distort. Firstly, if you want to move this thing slightly, you are welcome to go and do that by using uniform method. So for example, we can go a little bit higher right here. And then when you are done with positioning, let's go to distort option and we will go toward the left side and we will make it a little bit smaller right here. So we will go toward the corners that we have onto the top and onto the bottom, and we will try to create some kind of the perspective right here. So you can play around with this tool a little bit and create something that will look like that. Also, you can go and rotate it if you want to, maybe play again with your the size of everything and the position of everything. If you want to go to some other nodes and play around with them too, you are welcome to go and do that. Take a look at your illustration from the distance to decide whether you like the result or not. Try to not create too much perspective and too much distortion here. We still need to have some kind of similar size of these elements on both sides. So if you overdid it a little bit, go a little bit back and create a similar result, quite similar result on both sides. So for example, let's go with something like that. When we're done, let's hit our arrow key on the top left, and then we also will need to go right here and add this part of our glasses. So we will go toward this part and we will go down and create a line going like that. And of course, we will go down, even more down, and we will create the second part of this element. We also can go and maybe play around with the position of it, so you can spend some time and find the right placement for these elements and the right diagonal line right here. So spend some time here and adjust the placement of this element so it looks fine with your illustration. If you have some extra parts that you don't need, go and get rid of them. If you have some gaps, go and fill them up. If you see that the line is not quite matching with the shape of the glasses, you can go and try to elongate this part firstly, or maybe create something different right here. For example, let's go with something like that. Let's erase the part that we don't need. Also, as we made a copy, we can go a bit along this line that we have onto our glasses and maybe make it a little bit more crisp. When we have the result like that, let's go and get rid of some of the lines that we have right here that are overlapping our glasses. So we will get back to our layer where we have our main lines. If you like the position of the glasses right now, and if you don't want to move anything, we will go grab our eraser and we will go to these parts that are overlapping and we will get rid of them. And straight away, we can also go and maybe make some of the lines a little bit nicer. Now, when we have the result like that, let's get back to our layers. We can get back to our layer with our glasses, and probably we will have a bit of the line right here. So it is the same thing that we have onto this side, but it will be just a little bit seen right here with a bit of a thicker element onto this side. When we are done, let's go and merge everything together by going again to our layers and making a pinch movement like that. We also can go towards these parts that we have inside the glasses, that transparent parts, the glasses, and we can go and maybe create some lines that will go like the hair parts right here. So we will have nicer looking things right here. So you can go and elongate some of the lines and create some kind of the strands of hair right here too. And when we're done with it, let's go toward this bow that we have and let's recreate it too. So firstly, let's go toward this part. We will make it a little bit different. So creating some kind of this shape, going down with this thing, and then going toward the sides and recreating the actual bow right here. So going like that. If you want to maybe play around with the overall shape, go and do that. Go to the opposite side and recreate the second half of this element too. If you have some extra lines to get rid of, go and do that. And also let's go toward this middle part and let's recreate this volume part right here. Now, when we have the result like that, let's get back to our layers and hide our layer with the sketch. And also, let's firstly take a look at everything that we have right here, whether we maybe want to go and adjust some parts or add to the parts. So for example, right here, we'll need to go and add a bit of the lines to continue creating our little bow right here on the top. So for example, right here too. And also we can probably make this part a little bit rounder right here and create something going in that way. Again, getting rid of all the lines that we don't need. And when we are done with this part, we will go and add a bit of like interest towards some of the elements. So for example, let's go toward our little short right here, and let's add like these parts of our shorts. So we will go a little bit higher, and we will recreate the shape that we have right here. We will go along this line, and we will create a similar curve. You can go with a thinner line, and you can go inside this part and create something similar here too. Not necessarily go towards the like ends of the line. You can go with like a bit of a gap right here, and we will do the same onto the opposite side too. And we will do the same thing right here onto our like neck cut. So again, going like that and recreating the similar shape to what we already have right here. I'll probably go and elongate this little line of the neck slightly. So going like that and creating a little line, maybe erasing the part that we don't need. Taking a look at all the lines that we have. And again, if we need to go and adjust something, we will go and adjust it. Going towards this middle part, for example, we can go and create some kind of the ribbon right here. So we can go with the jagged line like that, with the wavy line. So let's go and create some peculiar little shape right here. And we will go underneath it and repeat it to create some kind of the ribbon, as I mentioned before. And also we can go and maybe add a bit of the like folds right here. You can go with simple lines like that and create a couple of them along this whole shape. Now, when we have the result like that, one more time, let's take a look at everything and decide whether we maybe want to go and adjust some parts. So for example, we can go and maybe add a couple of lines right here in the back to like create some kind of pattern right here with the hair. So for example, going in that way. Later on, we will recolor everything differently, but for now, we are just creating the nice effect right here. Also, we can take a look at everything without this frame. So let's go back to our list and hide it by tapping onto this check mark. One more time, taking a look at everything, deciding whether we want to go to some places, making sure that every line that we have right here is closed so we don't have any gaps. And when we are sure, let's move on to the coloring part. Before starting our clean base colors, let's probably fix a little bit of our glasses right here onto the left because it looks a little bit weird. So let's go to our Magic Wand tool one more time, Liquify, and we will be using push option and size slider. So go into the size slider, and what we're going to be doing is moving this shape, this thing, this left side of our glasses a little bit towards the like more left side. So we will try to create a bit of the maybe different shape, but maybe different position for the whole thing right here. So we will need to take a look at it from the distance, of course. We will need to sculpt it nicely and make, again, everything believable so the glasses are sitting onto the head. So let's spend some time here and adjust our shape slightly. So if you need to go to the opposite side too, let's go there and adjust the lines with our Liquify tool. We also can go with a smaller size of our push brush and try to adjust the thickness between these two elements. So we will go with a smaller size and we will try to kind of push it back toward the inside part. So let's go and try to do that too without adjusting the line that we have outside. And when we are done with adjusting our glasses, let's get back to our canvas by tapping on the Liquify tool twice, and let's go and manually fix some of the lines. So you can see we have adjusted this part here, so we'll grab our brush, the same one that we used before, and we will go and fix this part with the hair. We can do it on a separate list, so it will be easier for us to erase the parts that we don't need. So let's go to the list, let's create one more layer on top, and let's go and work on this line. Using the same brush and the same line weight that we used before for main elements that we have right here. And when we have the line, firstly get rid of all the overlapping parts with your eraser, and then get back to the previous layer where you have all the lines, and with your eraser very accurately go and erase all the lines that you don't need. When we are done with erasing some of the lines, let's get back to this new layer that we've created and let's recreate some of them again. And when we're quite satisfied with our glasses and everything, let's do one more thing. We will go right here onto the back part of our glasses and we will add this thing right here. So let's go right here and let's add the detail right here too. And now when we have the result like that, we are finally ready to start working with our colors. So let's move on to this part. For our basic colors, firstly, let's go to our layers and we will make sure that everything that we've created for the lines is on one layer. So if we have a couple of layers, we will go to them and we will merge them all together. When everything is on one layer, we will go to this layer, we will tap on it and we will use the option reference. That way we will be able to add the colors on the separate layers. So when we have the result like that, let's get back to the previous layer and from here we will create one more layer on top. Now when we have these, we will get back to our color palettes and let's start by selecting the skin color. With this color, we will go and recolor all the elements that we have for our skin. So either one by one by going with our little icon on the top to all the places that we need to recolor and doing that, or using the continue filling option on the top and going to all of the options and tapping on them. So let's go and add the colors to all the skin elements. Make sure that you've recolored everything. When you are done, tap onto this check mark on the top if you were using the continue filling option. Make sure that you've recolored everything, so zoom in your canvas and check out all the corners, all the angular things, because there you might encounter some problems. When you have the result like that, when we are done with the skin, let's go toward our layers one more time and let's create one more layer on top. Onto this layer, we will go to our color palettes and we will select our hair main color. Again, the same thing, we will go and start adding the color to all of the elements that belong to our hair. So again, either by using the continue filling option or going one by one, we will recolor all the elements that we have right here for our hair. Make sure that you recolored all the back parts too, so go like that and start to add the colors to all of the elements. If you see that you have some parts like that, for example, we can go and add the color here too, and also make sure that you didn't recolor the lines here. So if you did, get back to this option when you started to recolor the lines, you will see that you have a little outline everywhere, and when you are done with this part, let's go and one more time try to add the color to all the places so we don't recolor our lines. When we're done with it, we will go again to our layers. Straight away you can go there without tapping onto the check mark, going and creating one more layer on top, and onto this layer we will go and select the color with the title short. So let's go to our short, to the top part of it, and we will recolor everything that we have right here. So let's go toward this little part right here too, and to these parts too, and recolor these elements. And also with the same color, let's go toward our glasses and we will recolor them. Now, when we have it, let's also go again to our layers. We'll create one more layer on top and we will switch the color to details. With this details color, we will recolor the rest of the elements that we need to recolor. So everything that is not recolored now will be recolored with this color. So let's go and very quickly do that. And now when we have the result like that, we also will need to go and add the color right here to our glasses, to inside parts. So let's go and do that too. We will do it again on a separate layer. So let's go to our layers, create one more layer here, and let's go to these parts and add the color inside. To make sure that you've recolored everything, you can go and get rid of the color of every detail that you already recolored. So we can go to these check marks right here and we can hide them. So we will need to achieve the result that everything inside our glasses is recolored. And again, if you need to go manually to some of the elements, go and do that. So use your brush and recolor all the corners that you have right here and recolor the inside parts of our glasses like that. Now, when we have the result like that, let's get back to our layers and let's get back all of our layers that we've recolored. When we have the result like that, we are done with our basic colors. So let's move on to some details. So first we'll need to go to our layers. We will go to this layer where we have our reference on. We will tap on it and we will use reference from the list to turn it off. When we are done with it, let's start adding some shadows, and we will start from the bottom from our layer with the skin. So let's select this layer. Let's create one more layer on top. Let's tap on the layer and we will use the option clipping mask. We will be staying inside this skin layer with this clipping mask. So when we have it, we also will go to our color palette and we will change the color. So we will need to find the skin shadow color, and you also can see that some of the colors has some kind of a like number and some letters. That's gonna help us. So we will use this M50. So first select the color and we will get back to our layers. We will tap onto the N icon and we will firstly select multiply blending mode. This is our M letter, and then opacity will go to 50%. So when we're done with it, we also will go and change the brush. You can download the brush from the description. So we will be using the brush with the title taper. Now, when we are all set, let's start by going towards the fringe right here, and we will go right here and start to add the similar details, the shadows right here that will repeat the shape of our fringe. So you can go with the bigger size of the brush, with the smaller size of the brush. For now, just go there and repeat the elements to add some shadows. Also, we'll go right here. We will start to add a bit of shadows towards the parts right here, like that. And when we have it, we also will go toward our ear, and we can go and completely put it in a shadow. Now, when we have the result like that, let's go towards the bottom parts right here onto the elements of the fringe, or like a little bit longer than the fringe that we have onto our face. And we will go like that and add a bit of the shadows right here too. Now, when we have this, we can go towards the chin and we can add a bit of a shadow right here, going towards the overlapping parts. So we are going towards the hands right here, and we will start to add the shadows underneath them too. Going like that, starting to add the shadows, repeating the overall shape that we have. You can go a little bit further away from the actual hands, or keep it a little bit like quiet. Go on to the opposite side and trying to do the same thing here, repeating everything that we have right here for the shape. Now, when we have it, let's go and completely put the elements of the neck and the like a little bit lower than the neck into the shadow. And then we can go, and if you see that you accidentally added something that's not looking good, you can go and work with your brush, work with your eraser and adjust the parts that you need. And then we'll get back to our brush and we will work a little bit onto our hands. So firstly, let's go towards like any hand that you prefer. We will go towards these parts and we will start to add a little bit of the shadow right here. So going like that, starting to repeat the overall shape, and we will need to understand where our light is. So we will need to be consistent with our shadows. So if we are putting our shadows onto the like bottom left, bottom, it's not left, it's right, bottom right part, we will need to be consistent and we will need to continue adding the shadows in the same manner. So going like that and starting to add our shadows, repeating the overall shapes that we have right here. So you can connect these little parts, you can put this little shape completely in a shadow, but try to remain the shape and try to create a nice shadow overall. So for example, let's thicken these parts slightly. We will go along the shape, we will create something going in that way. And we also will go underneath this little thingy that we've created, our bracelet or something, and we will add a bit of a shadow right here too, again repeating the shape. Now when we're done with the first hand, let's go toward the opposite side and create something similar here too. So again, starting from here, from the knuckles, and starting to add the shadow going down with our arm. Repeat the shape and continue going down like that, and we will finish up creating this little shadow by going and creating something going like that. We can try to elongate it slightly, so we will create a smoother element. And when we have it, we also will go toward these parts right here, and we will again go very softly on the top firstly, and then going down and starting to add a bit more of the shadow. Again, repeating everything that we have right here for our shape. Doing the same onto the opposite side here too, but probably with slightly smaller shadow right here. Going along the whole shape on the bottom and adding a bit of a shadow here too. Again, doing it on both sides. Now let's go toward these parts, and we will first add a bit of a shadow right here because we have some kind of a fold right here, and then we will repeat the shape that we have for our t-shirt. Now when we have the result like that, we will try to do the same onto the opposite side too. So going like that, and we can connect these two shadows together and create something going in that way. Now when we have the result like that, we can say that that looks pretty, but it's not kind of enough. So we can go and add a bit of the like shadow, like more shadow. We will go and create one more layer here. We will again tap on it, create clipping mask. We will go with the normal blending mode, but we will adjust the opacity to something around 30-40%. So let's go with something around 35. When we have it, we will go to our color palette and we will select this skin lines color, and we will go to some of the areas that we want to pop up a little bit, and we will add the shadows here too. So we will be going toward, for example, these parts. We can go and create the deeper shadows. So you can decide where you want to add them and whether you want to add them at all. So for example, we can go to these bottom parts of our shapes. So for example, the skin and for example, the chin. And we also can go right here towards the neck and add the shadow here too. So we can go and firstly create something going like that, create a bit of the shadow underneath, like the shadow from the head. And when we have it, we also can go to this part and add a bit of a shadow here too. Also going towards the ear, and let's go and add some kind of the lines right here. So going and repeating the first shape that we have, the overall shape of the ear, and then we can go and maybe create some lines right here that will kind of make it look like an ear. So for example, let's go like that. Let's create something going in that way. From the distance, it looks like an ear, and with the same method that we used before, we can go to some other places and add a bit more of the shadows. Now, when we have the result like that, when we're quite satisfied with everything here, let's go and do the following. We will go toward our layers, we'll create one more layer on top, tap in, clip in mask, and then we will switch the color to blush. So for this color, we will go and switch the brush to, we will go to our airbrushing folder and we will select soft blend brush. We will set the opacity of this brush to something around 35%. And firstly, we will go with a big brush like that, and we will start to add a bit of a tint toward our skin. So we will go very carefully towards the elbows right here, and we will start to create some kind of the transition between the colors. So we are tinting them a little bit, but we are trying to make it in a very subtle way, so we don't have a very rough transition between the colors. We want to have like a gradient here. And we also can go toward this part where we have the fringe and very softly add the color here. If you overdid it, you can go and grab the smudge tool and very carefully go to these places and smudge it slightly. Now, when we have the result like that, let's get back to our brush. Let's change the size to something a little bit smaller, and we will go underneath the eyes and we will start to add the cheeks right here. So going like that with our brush and starting to develop the cheeks right here. So go like that and try it to create it. You can go with a more visible cheeks or with less visible cheeks, it's up to you. If you overdid it and you maybe want to adjust it, you can go back to your layers, tap to the N icon and adjust the opacity of this layer. Now, when we are done with it, let's get back to our previous brush. So it was our taper brush. Let's go and find it. And with the same color, we can go towards the cheeks that we've created and we can create some lines right here. If this color is not seen, you can go and change it to, for example, skin lines color. And with it, we will go and add some blush right here. Do it on both sides if you want to. And when we are done with it, let's go and continue working onto some other elements. So let's go to our next layer, which is our layer with the hair. We will create one more layer on top, tap in, selecting our clipping mask, and go into our color palettes to change the color. So we're going to be using this hair shadow color M65. Means that we will need to go back to our layer. We will need to firstly select the multiply blending mode and set the opacity to 65%. When we are done with it, with the same brush that we are using right now, we will start to go to our little strands of hair and we will start to add the shadows here. So let's firstly go toward the fringe and we will be going with the same thing as we did it onto our face. So we are again going mostly toward the bottom right part and to the bottom part of the hair right here mostly, and we will be starting to add the shadows, repeating the overall shapes that we have for our hair. So let's go and start to do that. So for example, let's go like that. You can also go if you created some of the additional elements, and you can go and make sure that you are making something here too. So you're creating some kind of the volume onto these strands. When you have it, let's go mostly toward the bottom part right here onto this part and creating our details here. So going along every strand that we have, following the overall direction that we picked for our shadows and starting to add our shadows here. You can go with very light shadows, you can go with kind of thick shadows, it's up to you. You can go with some peculiar shapes, you can go with some rounder shapes if you prefer that. Go to all of these elements and start gradually to add the shadows here. You also will need to think about what overlaps what. So for example, we have the glasses right here on the top. That means that they will be probably a little bit closer to our light source. So that means that we will need to add the shadow underneath them too. So again, go and repeat the shape and start to add our little shadows underneath the glasses too. Also, with the shadow, you can go and maybe add a few more of these strands or some kind of a definition inside the hair. So you can go and create some kind of the strands here too. So some kind of a not too random lines right here. And again, continue by going to all these details and start to add the shadows to them too. Of course, if you overdid something, grab your brush, grab your eraser, and try to create nicer look for all of these shadows. As we have our hair like in layers, we will need to add the shadows underneath some of these layers too. So for example, this part is a little bit in front, so we will need to go underneath it and we will need to add the shadow here too. And again, we are following the same rule. We are thinking about our light source, which is kind of stable, and we don't need to panic here. We will go to one of the sides and we will start to add our shadows here. For now, let's continue working with the strands of hair that are some kind of in front. So we will go to the next layer that we have right here and we will start to add the shadows here too, following the same gist. You also can go and maybe create some pattern with the shapes that you're creating. So again, going and starting to create some peculiar shapes, for example, on the top right here, to make sure that our shapes, our little strands of hair look like hair. And don't forget that when we are creating our shadows, we again need to think about the believability of everything. So we are not creating our shadows in a straight way or in a very plain way. We are following the direction of our strands. When we're done with the second layer of our hair, let's also go toward these bottom parts that are more outside. So we'll go to them and we will render them the same way too. As for the parts that we have right here closer to our face and overall illustration that we have for our girl, let's recolor these parts with a different color. So we will show that these parts are in the back. So we will go firstly to our color palette. We will go and select the color with the title Black Hair Shadow, and we will go and probably create one more layer so we won't mess with everything that we already created. Let's go underneath this layer that we have for our actual top part, and we will go and create one more layer here. We'll use normal blending mode and we will start by going toward these parts and doing actually the same thing here. We can go with a bigger size of the brush or with a smaller one, and we will go and start adding the shadows here to these places. So you can go and start to completely put these things into the shadow and then deal with them later on when we are going to be adding some details right here. So when we have it, we can go with the second layer of color right here and start to define some strokes. So you can go and start doing the same thing as we did on the top. If you want to go and maybe erase some parts and create the different color to some of the areas, you are welcome to grab an eraser and create some peculiar shapes. So you can go and with your eraser do the same thing as you did with the shapes right here that you are creating for your shadow, but by cutting these parts. If you overdid it, grab an eraser, grab a brush actually, because we were working with our eraser, and start to add the parts that you need right here. And again, go to the opposite side and start to add some details here too. When we're done with this color, we can go and emphasize even more to this back part by firstly changing the color to this back hair bluish color, and we will go and add some strands of hair here with this color too. So go in the same way as we did right here onto the top and starting to add some strands of hair with this color. Try not to overdo it. Try to use this bluish color only like an accent. So you can use it as the shadow, for example, the deeper shadow for these parts. And of course, if you think that this color is too much and overall back part is too much, we can go to our layers and adjust the opacity of this layer. And also we can get back to this layer where we have the top part of our elements. We can again get back to our hair shadow color and go to some of the parts that you erased with your eraser on the back. We can go to them and very easily go and recolor these parts right here too. And you can mix the colors too and add a bit of color with this tool and with this color too, if you prefer. So for example, let's go with something like that, and then we will add one more layer with our shadows. So we will go again to our layers, tap in and create one more layer on top, tap in, clip in mask, and we will change the blending mode to multiply and set it to something around 35–40%. We will go to our color palettes and select these reddish colors, so skin lines or shadows, and we will go to some of the elements right here that we want to look a little bit deeper in the shadow, and we will go and add the color here. So we are going to the places where we have the overlapping parts or something like that, and starting to add the shadows here. You also can go with this color to some of the back parts and add like a second layer of shadows right here. And when we have the result like that, let's continue by going and adding some highlights to finish up with our hair. So for the hair highlights, let's create one more layer on top, tap on it, and select our clipping mask. Let's go to the N icon and change the blending mode to Add, and we will select the white color, or firstly, let's try probably with the hair highlights color. Let's go to the areas where we don't have shadows, and we will start to add our highlights there. So for example, let's start with this big part of the fringe, and with the same brush and with everything the same, we will go and start to add the highlights going in that way. Again, we will need to follow the direction of our strand of hair. You can go with a simple shape, or you can create something different right here. So for example, let's go with something similar to what we've created for our shadows. So we are going along the overall shape right here and starting to add some peculiar little shape for our highlight here. So going like that, probably going higher a little bit with our shape and starting to add a bit of the rounder shape right here to make the believable effect right here. Going like that, going slightly towards the opposite side, starting to create a thicker element right here. Going like that and adding a couple more of these details. Develop the shape, use your brush, use your eraser. If you need to go and look at everything from the distance, you are welcome to go and do that. When we have the kind of shape like that, let's go to the next element, and again we will go and add a couple of little dots, little lines following the natural direction of the hair right here. Let's go toward the opposite side and create maybe some kind of this shape. Again, work with your brush, work with your eraser, try to create a very smooth element right here, so nothing very rough. When we have it going towards the next strand, we are trying not to add too many of these highlights. We are trying to go to the places where they will look good, and we will add them only to this part. So let's go toward this little element, and you can see we are going on the same line, kind of along the whole shape of our fringe. And we are not going in a straight line, we are going a bit on the curve right here. So going like that, starting to add one more, maybe the different shape right here, creating something going like that. Again, trying to create a nicer shape and a very smooth shape. So going with our brush and with our eraser to create a nicely looking shape for our highlights. Going to some other elements, so for example to the strands of hair that are closer to us, and adding couple dots, couple lines to create this additional sparkly effect right here. We also can go right here toward the bottom part and maybe create some little highlights there too. You can go and create some kind of this shape, maybe sculpt it nicely, create some kind of a triangular shape, glue it a little bit to this strand to create a nicer effect, and maybe create a little dot right here near this element too. And now let's finish up with our sparkles and highlights by going to this part and adding a couple of lines here too. If you want to go some other elements and maybe add the little sparkles to them too, and maybe elaborate onto this, you are welcome to go and do that. You are welcome to use as many highlights as you want, but try not to overdo it. And when we are done with this task, let's continue by going to our layers, and we will go and work onto the next layer with our shadows firstly. So go into our layer where we have our glasses and shorts, and let's create one more layer here. Tapping on this new layer, clipping mask, and let's go and firstly select our color. So for the top part of our t-shirt and to our glasses, let's go with a similar color that we use for our shadows onto our hair. So hair shadow color, going toward our layers and switching the N to multiply blending mode and setting the opacity to something around 50%. And let's go and start adding our shadows here too. So again, we are following the same direction for our shadows and starting to add the shadows firstly onto our little short right here. we should not forget that we have the hat on the top, so we will need to add the shadow right here where we have the hat to make sure that it's like sitting on top. So because it will cast the shadow here and right here too. Follow the direction that you have right here onto your short and continue by going to the opposite side and starting to create the shadows here too. If you have some overlapping lines on the top, overlapping shapes, for example, the bracelet here and the arm right here, go in there and adding the shadows to this part too. Go into this little shape and starting to add the shadow going along this whole part. Going right here, starting to add the shadow here too. Thinking about our light source. We also can go and maybe add a couple of lines that will define the shoulders right here. So going on this side, maybe going on the opposite side. It's not necessary. Maybe it's a full piece of like short right here and you don't have these shoulders or the lines for the shoulders. That's okay. We can go toward the top part and we can add a couple of lines right here that will create some kind of creases right here. And we also can go to the bottom where we have the connection with the bottom part of our dress right here. We can go and add some creases here too by creating the lines going in that way. You can go with one direction or with a couple of directions. You can vary the size of these elements and create a couple of details going in that way. Take a look at everything from the distance and decide whether you want to go and maybe add a bit more color toward these parts or to some parts of these elements. If you want to do that, go and select these skin lines, this reddish color, and go to some of the parts and add a bit more of the darkish elements right here. When we're done with it, we can go back to our layers, and for example, we can go back to our layer where we have the main shape for our little t-shirt, and we can add some detail right here onto the chest. For example, let's get back to our color palettes, let's select the white color, and let's create some peculiar little detail right here. So for example, let's go and create some kind of the sun right here. So going like that and creating a couple of details going in that way. If you want to create some other elements, you are welcome to go and do that. Now, when we have it, let's get back to our list. Let's go back to this layer where we have our shadows, and we will go and work onto the shadows onto our glasses. To get back to our first color, let's go to our color palettes, hair shadow color, going towards the bottom part of our elements and starting to add the shadows here too. So again, going the same way as before, starting to add our shadows, mostly toward the bottom right part. Let's go toward this handle right here and let's put it completely in a shadow. And when we have the main shadow like that, let's decide whether we maybe want to go to our layers, actually color palettes, and we can go and select this reddish color to elaborate some of the shadows right here. So you can go and add the second layer of shadows to make the overall shape right here a little bit more visible and so. So go to some of the areas and add the second layer of our shadows. We also can go toward these little parts right here and add a bit, a very soft shadow right here, not too big, by going toward this line and adding it in that way. Just repeating the overall shape that we have right here. Working with our brush and working with our eraser to create some volume right here. And we will do the same onto the opposite side too. If you have some elements to adjust, go and do it with your brush and with your eraser. And when we are done with this, let's go and add some little highlights. So firstly, let's go to our layers and create one more layer on top, tapping, selecting our clipping mask. And let's go with the overlay blending mode. We will go to our color palettes and we will select the same hair highlights color. And we will go and start to add our little highlights. So firstly, going over the top right here and starting to add a big highlight on the opposite side from our shadows, so going like that, and doing the same onto the opposite side too. So going closer to the edge right here and creating a bit of the highlight right here. We also can go to this little part and add a bit of a highlight here too. If you see that maybe this color is not enough, you are welcome to go and select the white color, and with the white color go to this big highlight that you have right here and maybe make it a little bit more visible. Again, if you need to work onto the shape, work with your brush and work with your eraser to create a nice element here. If you want to add some little elements onto the short, so for example, some highlights here, you are welcome to go and do that too. Don't try to overdo it right here. Go to the creases if you want to add a bit of the color here closer to them to create some volume if you want to. When you are done, let's go and start working onto some other elements. So for our next element, we will go to our list, we will go to our layers, to the layer that we have for our bluish elements, creating one more layer on top, tapping, selecting our clipping mask, and again, we will select our multiply blending mode. Let's change the color to detail shadow. We have this M40, so we will need to get back to our list and change the opacity of this layer to 40%, so going like that with the multiply blending mode and starting to add our shadows to these additional elements. So firstly, let's go toward the bottom part right here of our short or the dress, and we are starting to add our shadows. So again, we are following the same direction of our shadows and we are starting to add our details here. Go into all of the overlapping parts and putting them in the shadow and starting to add the details here too. So go underneath this little rubber or something and we are starting to add the shadow to these parts too. Going toward the bottom, starting to add a bit of the shadow right here. And as we have these creases right here, we will go and add the shadows to them too. You can go with a full element right here or you can create it going in that way. Take a look at everything from the distance, decide whether you maybe want to go and add a couple more of these details or maybe create something different on the bottom. Go and do it. And then also let's go toward this part and add a bit of a shadow here too. You can follow the direction that you have. And also we can go to the bottom part of this little part and very nicely add a bit of the shadow following the overall shape right here. When we are done with it, let's go towards this part. Let's add a shadow here. Again, go in the same way, starting to add the shadow. When we have the result like that, let's go toward our bracelet and let's add the shadow here too. So firstly, go into the back parts, putting them completely in a shadow, and then going toward the bottom part of the top part and starting to add the peculiar shadow here too. So you can experiment a little bit and create something going like that, and then add the color inside. So work with your brush and work with your eraser to create a nice shape and follow the direction of the overall shape that you have for this bracelet. And now when we're done with this, let's go toward our top part right here to this bow and let's start adding the shadows to these parts here too. So the same way, starting to add the shadows toward this inner parts right here, toward the bottom part of everything, going like that and starting to add the shadows going in that way. When we have the result like that, we also can get back to our list, to the previous layer where we have our details, and we can go and maybe add some pattern to our bow right here. So let's get back to our color palette. Let's select some lighter colors, so either hair mane or hair highlights, and let's go and add some pattern to this little part. For example, we can go with some stars or maybe some sparkles and create a couple of details here to make believable pattern right here onto this part. If you want to go to some other areas, maybe to the skirt here with this pattern, you are welcome to go and do that. When we're done with this task, let's also go toward the top parts right here and we will add some kind of the highlights. So we are again going on the top parts from our shadows and we are starting to add additional elements right here onto these parts. So we are working onto our main layer with the colors, so we will try not to overdo everything right here. When we are done with it, let's go and work onto what else do we have. We will work onto our glasses right here. So let's firstly select this layer. We will go to our hand icon and we will adjust the opacity slightly. So we will go with something around maybe 75% or so to make it a little bit more transparent. When we have it, we will tap on the layer, we'll create one more layer on top, tap on the layer, selecting our clipping mask, go in toward our color palettes, and we will start by trying to select this detail shadow color, and we will go and start to add the darker color toward the top part. So let's go with our taper brush with a bigger size of it, and we will start by creating some kind of the shadowy part right here. You can go with a peculiar shape like that and do the same onto the opposite side too. If we don't like how this color looks when we already have it, we can go to our magic wand tool over the top left. We can use our hue, saturation, and brightness, and we will go toward the bottom to the hue slider firstly to find the different color that will look suitable here. So for example, something like that looks good, but we also can go to the brightness, for example, and make it a little bit less bright. If you want to go to the saturation, and if you want to maybe go with a completely different color right here, you are welcome to go and do that and create something that you would like to see right here. So for example, let's go with something like that. You can go with the same values that we have on the bottom or experiment. So when you are done with it, let's tap onto our magic wand tool to get away from this mode. And let's continue by adding a few shadows right here onto our glasses. So let's go to our list. Let's create one more layer on top, tap in, clipping mask, multiply blending mode, and we will go and change the color to something more suitable. So for example, let's go with the same details color. We will go toward the top firstly, and we will start to create the darker element right here. If this color is not seen, you are welcome to switch it to something darker. So for example, cyan lines and something like that, and going toward the top and starting to add our shadow here. Again, if this color is not looking right for now, we can fix it when we've created these elements. So going to the opposite side and starting to add the similar thing here too. So going along the top toward the edge and starting to add this detail here. Now let's take a look at it and decide whether we like this color. If we don't, we will go again to our adjustments, hue, saturation, and brightness, and play around with these little handles that we have. So for example, let's go slightly bluish with these shapes that we've created. When you like the result, let's tap onto our magic wand tool to get away from this mode. And then let's go to our lace and create one more layer on top. We can go again and tap on it and clip it, but we won't do this because we want to have the very bright highlight right here. And we will firstly go to our color palette to select the white color, and we will go toward the top part and add these big highlights here with the full opacity of this layer that we've created. So let's go and create the big highlight on one side firstly, so going like that and creating some kind of the shape like that. You can go a little bit brighter right here, and you also can go and maybe add a couple of smaller elements onto the bottom too. Find the right placement. If you want to try it out a couple of times, go and do that. So for example, let's go with something like that, and let's create a couple smaller ones over the bottom. We also will go toward the opposite side and create the similar thing here too. You also can see when we've created these elements, we are not overlapping the hair that we have underneath. So we can go to our lace, we can grab this layer and we can drag it above our layer with the lines to make it again believable. We have these little sparkles right here. Again, work onto the shape if you want to. You also, if you feel that maybe this is not enough of the color for this whitish element, you can go and change the blending mode to add. You will have a brighter color right here. Adjust the opacity if you need to. Work a little bit more onto the shape to create a nicely looking element right here. One more time, decide whether you like the opacity of the glasses. If you maybe want to get back the opacity of this layer and maybe make it a little bit darker, you are welcome to go and do that. If you want to go with the full opacity, you are welcome to go and do that too. I will probably keep it at something around 90%. And when we have the result like that, we are mostly done with our colors, but we will need to soften up some of the parts by changing the colors of our lines. So let's firstly go to our brush library, and we will go again to our airbrushing folder, selecting soft blend brush, go into our layers, and we will go to this layer where we have our lines. We will create one more layer above it, we will tap on it, and we will use the option clipping mask. And now we're going to be going toward our color palettes, and we are going to be selecting different colors right here to recolor the elements. So firstly, let's go with our eyes. We will go and start to recolor them with this darkish color. When we have the overlapping parts, we will try to go very carefully to these places and starting to create the color with the darker color right here, creating the lines with a darker color. Go into the opposite side too and creating something similar here. To make it even cuter, we can go to our color palette and we can select this reddish color to go towards the ends of our lines, to the inner corners, and we can go and add a bit of the color right here. So we are again trying not to overdo it. We are trying to create a very smooth transition between the colors. When we have it with the same color, we will go right here toward the smile. We will go to our little elements on the top right here to these eyelids. We will recolor them too. When we have these, we also can go and probably recolor the lines that we have for our eyebrows, but for now we'll keep it the same way as we have it. Maybe later on we will adjust it. Now when we have it, let's go and work a little bit onto our hair. So firstly, go into our color palettes and we will go and select some hair lines color. So it is a little bit lighter. Going again with our brush with the bigger size of it, you can do it on a separate layer so you won't go to the places that you already recolored. So let's go and do this. We will go to our layers. We'll go again to our layer where we have our main lines. We'll create one more layer from here. So it will be underneath the elements that we already recolored. And very easily we will go to some of the places right here and we will start to soften them up. You can go and soften up everything that you have inside, for example, and keep the lines that you have outside a little bit darker, or you can experiment a little bit and create something that you would like to see right here. You can go with more definition to some of the elements. You are also welcome to go and maybe select the color that you used for the shadows and soften up some of the lines even more. So for example, we can go and select this lighter color. So we used, for example, let's go and select this orange color and we will go to some of the lines and we will soften them up too. If you are doing it, try to create very smooth connections between the parts that you are working on. So going like that and starting to soften up some of the lines. If you recolored some elements that you don't want to recolor, for example, the eyebrows, you can go with your eraser and erase the parts that you don't need. Now, when we have the result like that, we can get back to our hair lines color and, for example, go toward these parts that we have onto our shorts and recolor some of these lines. You can go and create only the transition between the colors, so you don't need to go and fully recolor some of the lines, if you don't want to do that, of course. If you want to go and maybe work onto these lines, you can go and select some darkish colors, for example, cyan lines, and go to these parts and recolor them with this color. So let's go and recolor all of the lines that are supposed to be bluish with this color that we are using right now. We also can go with some bluish colors. So for example, blue lines right here. We can go and recolor the lines that we have onto our hair. So going inside and starting to recolor some of the elements where we have the bluish parts. And also we can go and select the skin lines color and go towards the hands right here and recolor the lines right here inside. If this color is too much, you can go to the color palette and maybe try out some other color. You can go with a very small pressure for your brush and add a bit of the color, like a tint right here. And when we have the result like that, let's also go get back to our brush that we used before. So it was our taper brush. Let's select the white color and we will go above all the layers or to this layer where we have these very bright highlights onto our eyewear. We will go toward our eyelashes right now and we will add a bit of the sparkles here too. So let's go and create a couple of lines like that. You can go with bigger shapes, with smaller shapes. It's up to you. Go and create a couple of highlights. Now, when we have the result like that, we are almost done. If you are satisfied with everything, you can continue creating the elements outside, or if you don't want to do that, you can stop right now and you will have the illustration going in that way. But if you want to continue, let's go and create one more layer on top, and we will go to the folder that you can download from the description. This is our stem brushes, simple stem brushes. And we will go and select some of the elements to add some additional elements outside. For example, let's start with the heart. You can select any one from here, and let's go toward the bottom of our color palette, and we'll be using these three colors right here to add the details onto the outside part. So for the hearts, let's go with this pinkish color, and let's go and add a couple of details right here outside. Go with the smaller size and add a couple of these heart elements. When you have them, you can go and add the color inside by dragging it from our tool on the top. You can again vary the size of these elements. It's up to you. When you are done with the hearts, let's go and select some sparkles. So for example, let's go with the sparkle tool. Let's select the different colors. So for example, let's go with this blue-green. And again, we will go and add a couple of these elements to our illustration. Again, go with the bigger size of the brush, with the smaller size of the brush. Up to you. Go and create these elements. And the color inside when you are ready. And when we have these, let's go and select our yellowish color, which is our orange. And let's go maybe with a different sparkle. So for example, sparkle thin full. Let's go and add a couple of details with this little sparkle here too. And when we have the result like that, the very last thing will be to go to the bottom and add a bit of the shadow here. So let's go back to our brush that we used before, either a taper or our technical pen brush. We will go and select some darkish colors, so for example, blue lines, and we will go to the bottom of everything that we have right here. So to the layer where we have our sketch, we'll create one more layer here, and we'll go toward the bottom and create an ellipse shape like that. So hold it at the end to create an ellipse shape. Hold one of your fingers to make sure that it is some kind of this straight one. Going like that, adding the color inside when we are ready. If it's not working, we can go try to do it manually. So going like that, starting to add our details inside. And when we have this, let's go and change the opacity of this layer. So go into the N icon and making it subtle. If you want to adjust it, you can go to the arrow key on the top left. You can rotate it a little bit. You can find a different placement for it. You can use freeform method to make it less open by going towards one of the nodes on the top or on the bottom and create something going like that. When you are done, when we have the result like that, we are done with our illustration.
I hope you are proud of your result. Share it on socials and tag me so I can see your beautiful creations. And if you enjoyed this video, you can find more similar kawaii tutorials on my Skillshare or on Patreon at the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.